Hi, hello, welcome to Eagle Media Works. I am Amarnath Pakalapati. So, now we are going to discuss a few points about Indian Constitution. As the Usmania University has implemented the course for the engineering students, that Indian Constitution is a mandatory subject for every engineer, because how the world is going on, how the Indian rules and regulations are framed, it should be a minimum knowledge for every student to survive in this society. So, first of all, we will discuss about the syllabus. Now, Unit 1, Evolution of Indian Constitution, that is 1909 Act, 1919 Act and 1935 Act, Constituent Assembly, composition of the functions and fundamental features of the Indian Constitution. Now, coming to the second unit, that is Union Government. It means that Executive President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, State Government, Executive Governor, Chief Minister, Council of Ministers, and also about local government, Panchayati Raj institutions and urban government. And coming to the third unit, it is about rights and duties, fundamental rights and directive principles, fundamental duties. And coming to the fourth unit, that is about the relations between the federal and provincial units, union state relations, administrative relations and financial relations, interstate council, Niti Aayog and Finance Commission of India. And coming to the fifth unit, that is statutory institutions, that is Election Commission of India, National Human Rights Commission, National Commission for Women. This is about the syllabus, and now we are going to discuss each and every unit in a brief way. That is coming to the first unit, Evolution of Indian Constitution. So coming to the historical background, the Britishers came to India in 1600 as a traders in the form of East Indian Company, which had an executive right of trading in India under the charter guaranteed by the Queen Elizabeth I. In 1765, the company, which is still had purely trading functions, obtaining the Diwani rights, that is, rights over the revenue and civil justice of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. This started its career as a territorial power in 1858. In wake of Sepoy Mutiny, the Britishers Coven assumed that direct responsibility for the governance of India. This rule continued till India was guaranteed independence on August 15, 1947. With independence came the need of the constitution as suggested by M.N. Roy in 1934. A constituent assembly was formed for the purpose in 1946, and on January 26, 1950, the constitution came into being. However, various features of Indian constitution and polity, we have their roots in the British rule. There are certain events in the British rule that laid down the legal framework for the organization and functioning of government and administration in British India. These events have greatly influenced our constitution and polity. And coming to the subtopics of this, Evolution of Indian Constitution, Act 1909, 1919 and 1935 Act. Coming to this first topic, Indian Council Act 1909. The act is also known as Minto-Morley reforms. Lord Morley was the Secretary of the State for the India and Lord Minto was then Viceroy of India. It considerably increased the size of Legislative Council, both central and provincial. The number of members in the Central Legislative Council is raised from 16 to 60. The number of members in the Provincial Legislative Council was not uniform. It enlarged the deliberative functions of Legislative Council at both the levels. For example, members were allotted to ask supplementary questions, move resolutions on the budget, and so on. It provided for the first time for the Association of Indians with the Executive Council of Viceroy and Governor. Sachendra Prasad Sinha became the first to join the Viceroy of Executive Council. And coming to the second topic, that is Government of India Act 1919. It is further divided the provincial subjects into two parts. Transformed subjects were to administered by the governor with the aid of ministers responsible to the Legislative Council. The revised subject, on the other hand, were to be administered by the governor and his Executive Council without being responsible to the Legislative Council. This dual scheme of governance was also known as Dynasty. The majority of the members of both the houses were chosen by the direct elections. And coming to the third topic, that is Government of India Act 1935. It provides for the establishment of Reserve Bank of India to control the currency and credit of the country. It provided the establishment of not only a federal public service commission but also a provincial public service commission and joint public service commission for two or more provinces. It provided for the establishment of a federal court which is set up in the year of 1937. And this is about the important topic. And coming to the next topic, that is a Constituent Assembly of India. The Constituent Assembly of India is a sovereign body which has formed on the recommendations of the Cabinet Mission which visited India in 1946, the draft of a constitution for the country. However, later on the Constituent Assembly has also faced certain criticism after the formation. On the basis of the framework provided by the Cabinet Mission, a Constituent Assembly was constituted on 9th December 1946. The constitution making body was elected by the Provincial Legislative Assembly constituting of 389 members who included 93 from princely states and also 296 from British India. The seats of the British Indian provinces and princely states were allotted in the proportion of their respective population and were to be divided among the Muslims, Sikhs, rest of the communities. All the sections of Indian society got representation in the Constituent Assembly in the split of limited surface. The meeting of the Constituent Assembly took place on December 9th, 1946 at New Delhi with Dr. Sachidanand Sinha being elected as a interim president of the Constituent Assembly. However, on the December 11th, 1946, the Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president and H.C. Mukherjee as a vice president of Constituent Assembly. Functions of the Constituent Assembly are framing the constitution and enacting the laws and involved in the decision making process. It adopted the national flag on July 22nd, 1947. It accepted and approved Indian membership of British Commonwealth in 1949 May. It elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the first president of India on 26 January 1950. It adopted the national anthem on 24th January 1950. It adopted the national song on January 24th, 1950. Committees of the Constituent Assembly, Constitution Making Union Powers Committee and Union Constitution Committee, Provincial Constitution Committee and Drafting Committee, Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights and Minorities and Rule of Procedure Committee and State Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru Steering Committee. Among these 8 major committees, the most significant was Drafting Committee. On 29th August 1947, the Constituent Assembly set up as a drafting committee under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to prepare the draft of Indian Constitution. Coming to the topic, the preamble, we the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure all its citizens justice, social, economic and political liberty of thoughts, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. So this is completely about the first unit. And coming to the second unit, that is union government and state government and local government. And coming to the first topic, that is union government. In this union government, we are going to discuss only 3 topics, that is executive president, prime minister and council of ministers. Coming to the president, president is the head of the entire constitution and he will be the executive body. President of India election is not a direct election, it is completely elected by the public representatives, that is MLAs and MPs, and the 2 important qualifications of a president is he must be a citizen of the country, that is Indian citizenship, and also he must have the age of 35 years of age. So in this we can observe that the two important qualifications of the president, and he will be the executive president. He will having a vital role in the running of the parliament. So parliament means nothing but Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha and also president. Including all these three, we will call it as President of India. And coming to the Prime Minister, Prime Minister is the head of entire Lok Sabha. So he will be acted as a entire head for the nation. So Prime Minister election is also a direct election because he will be elected directly by the public by casting the vote for the MPs. So MPs means member of parliament. All these member of parliaments will select one candidate and they will nominate one person as a Prime Minister according to the majority, and he will act as a Prime Minister. And coming to the Council of Ministers, Council of Ministers is also nothing but the members who will organize all the various departments of government of India, and they will be also elected as a member of parliament. And the person who is appointed as a Prime Minister, he will select a candidates who are having some other interest on the various departments from the MPs, and he will be nominated this Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers will be the head for the each and every department. So in this, coming to the second topic, that is state government. State government means nothing but again we are having three topics in our syllabus, that is executive governor, chief minister and council of ministers. Executive governor is also a body which is under the constitution, and he will be the head for the executive body in the state, and governor will also selected from the public and appointed by the president of India. And coming to the chief minister will be the head of the state or state government. He will be elected by the public by casting the vote for MLAs, member of legislative assembly. All these elected MLAs will be selecting one person as a chief minister who is having huge majority and who is the important person in the political party. All this comes under chief minister. And coming to the council ministers, these council ministers are nothing but the persons who are elected as MLAs, and the chief minister will appoint these council ministers as the department heads, and these departments will be governed by this council of ministers. And coming to the third topic, that is local government. Local government means we all know that the important two amendments, that is 73rd and 74th amendments, and Balwant Mehta committee, Ashok Mehta committee, LM Singhvi committee, all these committees are introducing this about local government. Especially Balwant Mehta committee. Balwant Mehta is the father of Indian local government. He is the first person appointed by the Nehru government to examine all these relations, what is actually happening in the ground level reality. And this Balwant Mehta committee has recommended a three-tier panchayati at the local level. It should be mandal level mandal panchayati, and village level village panchayati, and at the district level it should be a district panchayati or Jilla Parishad. So this is the three-tier panchayati has given by the Balwant Mehta committee. After that we have appointed Ashok Mehta committee. Ashok Mehta committee is also given a recommendation. 29 recommendations have given by Ashok Mehta committee and also LM Singhvi committee. And finally 73rd and 74th amendment. 73rd is about completely about the Panchayati Raj system. This 73rd amendment will place a vital role in India because our Honorable ex-Prime Minister Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao has initiated this bill in Parliament and succeeded for approving this amendment. Finally, the 73rd and 74th amendments came into act. 73rd amendment is completely about the Panchayati Raj institutions, and 74th is about urban government. And coming to the third unit, that is about rights and duties, fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy and fundamental duties. And coming to the introduction of fundamental rights and duties, during the period of 1947 to 1949, the Constitution of India developed and prescribed the fundamental obligations of the state to its citizens and the duties and the rights of the citizens towards the state under the following sections, which constitute the vital elements of the Constitution: fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy and fundamental duties. These sections consist of constitutional bill of rights for government policy making and lay down a foundation for the appreciate to behavior of conduct of citizens. So the fundamental rights are some of the futures have been borrowed from the US are fundamental rights. Article 12 to 32 of Indian Constitution contains all the fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are the basic human rights given to the citizens of the country to assure them an equal stands out to the society. These are the basic human rights of all the citizens defined in Part 3 of Constitution. These are applicable irrespective of race, place of birth, religion, caste, creed or gender. They are enforceable by the governments and also courts, subject to the specific restrictions. Following are the some of the important rights of the citizens of India in the accordation of the Constitution. Right to equality, Article 14 to 18. Right to freedom, Article 19 to 22. Right against exploitation, Article 23 to 24. Right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. Cultural and educational rights, Article 29 to 30. Right to property, Article 31, which is removed by Indira Gandhi by using 42nd Amendment. Right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. And we are newly added right to education, Article 21A. This is about the fundamental rights. Directive principles of state policy. The directive principles of state policy are enumerated in Part 4 of Constitution from Article 36 to Article 51. The framers of the Constitution borrowed this idea from the Irish Constitution in 1937, which had been copied it from the Spanish Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar described these principles as novel features of the Indian Constitution. The directive principles along with the fundamental rights contains the philosophy of the Constitution and the soul of the Constitution. Directive Principles of State Policy, Article 36 to 51. Definition of these Directive Principles of State Policy are application of the principles contained in the part of the state to secure social order for the promotion of welfare of the people, certain principles of policy to be followed by the state, 31 equal to justice for all the legal aid, 40 organizations of village panchayatis and right to work, right to education, to public assistance in the certain cases, provisions for just as a human conditions at framework, and maternity relief, living wages, etc. for workers. So 43A, participation of workers in the management of industries and uniform civil code for the citizens. Article 45, provision for the free and compulsory education to the children. Organization of agricultural and animal husbandry. 48A, protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding the forests and wildlife. Article 47, protection of monuments and places and objects of national importance. And the next article, separation of judiciary from executive and promotion of international peace and security. Promotion of educational and economic interests of scheduled caste, scheduled tribal and weaker sections. And coming to the fundamental duties. Duties of citizen. The socialist countries on the country gave equal importance to the fundamental rights and duties to their citizens. Hence, the Constitution of the USSR declared that the citizens' exercises of their rights and freedom was inseparable from the performance of their duties and obligations. Swaran Singh Committee recommendations. In 1976, the Congress Party set up Sardar Swaran Singh Committee to make recommendations about fundamental duties. The need of necessity which was felt during the operation of the internal emergency 1975 to 1977. The committee recommended the inclusion of separation chapter on fundamental duties in the Constitution. It stressed that the citizen should become consequences and addition to enjoyment of rights. There are also certain duties to perform as well. The Congress government at center accepted these recommendations and enacted in 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976. This amendment added a new part, namely Part 4A to the Constitution. This new part consists of only one article, that is Article 51A, which was the first time specified a code of 10 fundamental duties of the citizen. Article 51A, fundamental duties, it shall be a duty of every citizen in India to be aid to the Constitution and respect its ideas and institutions, national flag and national anthem, to cherish the following noble ideas which inspired our national struggle for the freedom, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of the India, to define the country and render national service when called upon to do so, to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional sectional diversities, to protect and improve natural environment including forests, lakes, rivers, and wildlife, and to have compassion of living cultures, to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry of reform, and safeguard public property and against violences, to strive towards excellences in the spheres of individual and collective activity so that national constituency rises higher levels of endeavor and achievements. So this is about the third unit. And coming to the fourth unit, that is relations between federal and provincial units, union and state relations. These relations are classified into administrative relations, financial relations, and interstate council, Niti Aayog, Finance Commission of India, union state relations, center state relations. India is a union of states. The Constitution of India has divided the legislative, executive, and financial powers between the center and the state, which gives the Constitution a federal character, whereas judiciary is also integrated in the hierarchy structure. Center-state relations are divided into three parts, which is mentioned below. Legislative relations, Article 245 to 255. Administrative relations, Article 256 to 263. Financial relations, Article 268 to Article 293. And coming to these, Sarkaria Commission means, Sarkaria Commission is also an important commission. Sarkaria Commission was set up in 1983 by the central government of India. Sarkaria Commission character was to examine the central and state relationship on various portfolios and suggest the changes within the framework of Constitution of India. The commission was so named as it heard by Justice Ranjit Singh Sarkaria, chairman of the commission, which drafted the rule of governors and also suggested the choosing of chief minister and the governor should be guide. And also one more important commission, that is Poonchi Commission. A commission headed by the former Chief Justice of India, M.M. Poonchi, was set up in April 2007 to take a fresh look at the all roles and responsibilities of governments at various levels and relations between them. The commission recommended that it should be a clear so that someone has to be short out the regulations on the disciplinary actions for the power of governance. Guidelines for the appointment of chief minister, it said that pre-poll alliances must be treated as one political party and lay down the order of proceedings for the governor must follow the case of housing allotment. Establishment of interstate council under Article 263, decentralization of power to the states as much as possible, more transfer of financial resources to the states arrangements and devolution of in such a way that the states can fulfill their obligations. Advancement of loans to the states should be related as the productive principle. Development of central armed forces in the states either on their request or otherwise during the state emergency under Article 356. President's rule can be imposed in eventual failure of constitutional machinery in the state. Interstate Council. Under Article 263, interstate council are established to facilitate the coordination between the states. The President of India, in the exercise of the powers under Article 263, was constituted in the Interstate Council on May 28, 1990. The important features of the investigation and discussion of subjects which are in the common interest, make the suggestions for the best coordination of policy and actions such as subjects to deliberate on matters of general interest to the states referred by the chairman to the council. The one more important topic in this unit is Niti Aayog. The abbreviation of Niti Aayog is National Institute for Transforming India, is a policy of think tank of Government of India established the aim with to achieve sustainable development goals, enhance cooperative federalism by the involvement of state government of India in the economic policy making process under bottom up approach. It involves including 15 years of roadmap, 7 years vision, strategy and action plan, Amrut, Digital India, Atal Innovation Mission, medical educational reforms, agricultural reforms, model land leasing laws, reforms of agriculture, producing marketing committees, etc. Agricultural marketing and farmer friendly reforms index for the ranking states indicates the measures of state performance in health, education and water management, subgroup of chief ministers on the rationalization of centrally sponsored schemes, subgroup of chief ministers on Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, subgroup of chief ministers on skill development, task forces on agricultural and poverty, and transforming India towards the establishment of it is established in 2015 by NDA government to replace the planning commission which followed by top down model. Present composition of Niti Aayog, chairperson is Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi and vice chairman is Sri Rajiv Kumar, and full time members are Professor Saraswati and Professor Ramesh Chud and Vinod Kumar, all this acting as these Niti Aayog members. And one more important topic in this unit is Finance Commission. Article 280 of Constitution of India provides for the Finance Commission as a quasi-judicial body. It constituted by the President of India every fifth year or at such earlier time as they consider of necessary. This composition is the Finance Commission consists of a chairman and 4 other members to appointed by the President of India. They hold office for such a period as they specified by the President in his order. They are eligible for reappointment also. The Constitution authorizes the Parliament to determine the qualifications of the members of the Commission and the manner in which they should be selected. According to the Parliament, as specified to the qualification of the chairman and members of the Commission, the chairman should be a person having experience in the public affairs, and also the 4 other members should be selected from the amongst the following: a judge of a high court or one of the qualified appointed as one, or a person who has specialized knowledge on finance and accounts and the government, person who has wide experience in the financial matters and also administration, a person who has having special knowledge on economics. All these are the qualifications, and important functions are the functions to required to make the recommendations to the President of India on the following matters: the distribution of net proceeds of the taxes to be shared between the center and states, and allocation of between the state and respective shares such as proceeds, and also the principal should be government and the grants should be state to the center, and also the measures needed to augment the consolidation funds of the state to supplement resources of the panchayatis and also municipalities in the state on the basis of the recommendations made by the State Finance Commission. Any other matters referred to the President of India interest of solid finance. This is about the Finance Commission. And coming to the 5th unit, that is statutory institutions. Nothing but Election Commission of India, National Human Rights Commission, National Commission for Women. And coming to the important first topic, that is Election Commission of India. The Election Commission of India is a permanent and an independent body established by the Constitution of India directly to ensure free and fair elections in the country by using Article 324 of the Constitution provides that the power of superintendence, directions and control of elections to the Parliament, state legislatures and the office of President of India and also office of Vice President of India shall be vested in the Election Commission. Thus, the Election Commission is an all India body in the sense that it is common to the both central government and also state government. It must be noted that here that Election Commission is not concentrated with the elections of panchayatis and municipalities in the states. For this, the Constitution of India provides a separate state election commission. And composition of this election commission is Article 324 of the Constitution has made the following provisions with regard to the composition of the election commission. The election commission shall consist of the chief election commissioner and such as number of other election commissioners, if any, as the president may form it from fix, and the appointment of the chief election commissioner and also the election commissioners by the President of India. When any other election commissioner is also appointed, the chief election commissioner shall act as a chairman of the election commission. The president may appoint after the constitution with the elections commissions such as regional commissioners as he may consider necessary to assist the election commission. The conditions of the service and tenure of the office of election commissions and regional commissions shall be determined by the President of India. And the powers and functions of election commission. The powers of election commission and with regard to elections to the parliament, state legislature and vice president elections and president of India elections classified into three categories: administrative, advisory and quasi judicial. In detail, these powers and functions are to determine the territorial areas of electoral constituencies throughout the country on the basis of delimitations of the Commission Act of Parliament, to prepare the periodically revised electoral rolls and registers to the eligible voters, to notify the dates and schedules of elections of the nomination papers, to grant the recognition of political parties and allot the symbols for them, to act as a court for the settling disputes related to the granting of recognition of political parties and allotment of election symbols to them. This is about the election commission. And coming to the National Human Rights Commission, it is established for the commission. The National Human Rights Commission is a statutory body, not a constitutional body. It was established in 1993 under the legislation enacted by the parliament, namely the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. The act was amended in 2006. The commission is the watchdog of human rights in the country, that is the rights related to life, liberty, equality and dignity of the individual guaranteed by the constitution. The specific objectives of the establishment of the commission are to strengthen the institutional arrangements through which human rights issues could be addressed in their entity and also focused in their personal interest, to look into allegations of the excesses independently of the government in a manner that would be underline the government's commitment to protect the human rights. And composition of this Human Rights Commission. The commission is a multi-member body consisting of a chairman and 4 members. The chairman should be a retired Chief Justice of India and the members should be serving or retired judges of the Supreme Court, a serving or retired Chief Justice of a High Court, and 2 persons having knowledge on practical experience with respect of human rights. In addition to these full-time members, the commission also having 4 ex officio members: the chairman of National Human Commission for Minorities, the National Commission for SCs, the National Commission for STs and National Commission for Women. These 4 members will be acting as a ex officio members. The chairman and the members appointed by the president and the recommendations of the 6-member committee consisting the Prime Minister as a head of the Speaker and Lok Sabha and the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha, leaders and the opposition in the both the houses of the parliament, and central home minister, further sitting judge of the Supreme Court or sitting chief justice of a high court can be appointed only after the constitution of the Chief Justice of India. The chairman and the members hold office for the term of 5 years until they attain the age of 70 years, whatever is earlier. After their tenure, the chairman and the members are not eligible for the further appointment under the central or state government. And coming to the functions of this commission is to inquire into any violation of human rights or negligence of the prevention of such violation by the public servant, either suo motu or in the petition presented to it or on the order of court. To protect the all human rights and fundamental rights is the major important function of this Human Rights Commission. And coming to the next important topic in this unit, that is National Commission for Women. National Commission for Women is also one of the significant statutory bodies established by Government of India. It was established in 1992 under the provisions of National Commission for Women Act 1990. The central government took the initiative to establish this commission by keeping in view of provision of Indian Constitution to strengthen the women in country through addressing violates and supervisioners and other type of violences they are used to face. National Commission for Women also takes the initiative for overall development of women community in whole country. Main aim of National Commission for Women is to raise the concern for the women and respect itself for their rights. This commission takes into count the issues and account the issues and concern the women community and advises for the authentic solutions of all the problems they face. Functions of the National Commission for Women, working for the coordinating agency to receive any process of all the complaints related to Indian women desired by the other selves or Indian husbands, shall render all possible assistance to the complaints, including coalition between the parties, advising to the complement on related to the issues, associating network with NGOs, community organization in India, and also overseas state women commission for the wider area coverage, so the assist easy access to provide support services. And coming to this, to share an important thing about National Commission for Women is, there is a iron lady in India, her name is Jayanti Patnaik. She worked for the welfare of women. She worked a lot of issues and she resolved a lot of things regarding women, and she protected women. So she is the first chairman for the National Commission for Women, and also present chairman is Rekha Sharma. This is about the National Commission for Women. Wish you all the best. Thank you.